All right, so what jumped out at you when the skin schedule was released?
Well, the Thanksgiving Day game again. So that's what, 3 times in 5 years, and then let's see, it's 16, 18, and now 20, and then they were there in 2012, and it tells you how much they like that matchup on Fox. The other thing that jumps out is no Monday night game for the first time since 1999, and pretty much every game.
Did we lose his audio there? Bad cell?
He's gone.
May have lost John. I'm sure that.
Does it look like he's on the line, Valdez? What's going on?
Yeah, Drive's trying to talk to him now.
Yeah.
It's a landline, so I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so first year since 99 that they haven't had a Monday night game. That's
I think it's
interesting.
only the Skins, and I believe it's one of EB's favorite teams, the Detroit Lions, not featured on prime time this year.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't care. I understand
Hey,
it.
you know what? The Redskins fans should be rejoicing that they're not featured on prime time because
They never do well.
their record on Monday and Sunday Night Football and any prime time fare has been horrendous.
Well, you know what I'm thankful for?
You don't have to stay up.
We don't have to stay up.
Right.
Yeah. Those
Beautiful.
games are freaking torture.
You know what Flakes loves? 1 p.m. Sunday kickoffs.
They're the best.
Yeah.
Love them.
Johnny, you back?
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah,
There you go.
all good.
Okay, so I don't know what was heard, but like the thing that jumped out with the Thanksgiving Day game again, and then all the 1 o'clock starts, except for the 2 West Coast games, and then the Thanksgiving Day game, and no Monday night game since '99, and it just kind of it's reflective of what the league feel. You know, the many questions surrounding this team, but I point out too, the last time they didn't go on Monday night was in '99. And they won the division. And I remember that year, going into that year, people were skeptical as heck about this team. Not that, who knows what's going to happen, but point is it's, the expectations going in, and it doesn't always meet the reality of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing that jumped out at me, and we talked about it earlier, John, was the first. Now, again, you got to throw a caveat in here because you don't know if there's going to be fans, which just blows my mind if they're going to play NFL games without fans. But the first month, starting with Philly, going on the road to play Arizona and Cleveland, who are going to have pretty good offenses, and then Baltimore. All right, so you got the first month, I think, is brutal. Then the last month with San Francisco, Seattle, Carolina, and then at Philly.
That's a brutal stretch there.
Yeah. And the reason I say that about the first month is because you got a young quarterback, new system, hasn't had any time to practice with these guys, and then to throw him on the road in the first 3 weeks, 2 out of the first 3 weeks, I think that's tough.
It's really tough, and I think the one thing that I'll say for this group, like going against, like say for example, Philly in the opener, is that what you'd have to hope is that the defense will be at a much further point, and the Eagles, while they have a very good quarterback, they're also incorporating a lot of new skill players. So can my guess is what I could foresee is a situation where they're going to rely heavily on the run game early and try to ride that defense early, much like they wanted to do last year. But maybe they'll be in better position to do it this year. But to try and limit what maybe you can't do yet in the passing game, because who knows where anybody's going to be with this offense at that point. So I think there's a way that they can at least limit things early or limit some of their flaws early. But, yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, and to go on the road in those games against those offenses and, if you have to keep up with them, then I think it could be a little bit difficult. But, there's so many questions with this team that you just don't know. You're not going to know what to expect even probably after the preseason, if we see a preseason. So that makes that early part really difficult to gauge.
John, speaking of difficult to gauge, I'm asking you to predict the future. For the first home game against Philly, will it be A, fanless, B, limited attendance, C, doors wide open? What do you think?
My gut tells me no fans, but that's based on nothing other than we're sitting at home for a couple of months not knowing what the heck's going on. So that would be my guess right now. And maybe hopefully within maybe a month or two after that, maybe you can start having a limited situation. I don't know. even in a limited situation, what can can you really keep it the way they're going to want in terms of guidelines? I don't know. So I would go A right now.
I'm going on the record in open stadiums, limited fans. They'll spread them out.
Right.
They'll spread them out.
Maybe you limit the tickets to 12 to 15,000, and
Yeah.
that way you will be spread out in a 60 or
Spread out.
70,000
You
seat
definitely
stadium.
get spread out. But yeah.
You'll have to be spread out in
think-
line, getting in. That's fine. And it's just going to be, and maybe limit concessions. Maybe they even go out, look outside the box here, and maybe say go old school. When we used to go to Memorial Stadium for Royals games, you could bring your own food.
Right.
So
Yeah,
maybe
BYOB.
you know, so
They're not allowing that. No
okay,
way.
maybe not bring your own beer, but maybe you could bring your own sandwiches. And they're just going to say, look, this is a one-off. It's the weirdest year in our
Yeah.
history. And so for this year, we're going to shut down concessions, and you guys can bring your own food and drink, no glass bottles. And that's just that's an idea I'm throwing out there. And that way you eliminate concessions.
The thing I wonder about, though, is will they do that if every state isn't willing to do that? Like what we keep hearing out of California is that, I mean,
Well, they'll be limited then. Then they'll be
Right,
limited.
but-
So the state law will.
And like if they can't do it for every team, would they do it for some? But I think under that plan, the thing I also wonder about too, and from a selfish standpoint, is what do they do with like the press box? How many people do you limit it there?
I mean,
What
like the
about all
White
the
House
workers
thing,
there?
man. You're going to be
Yeah,
6 feet
it'll
away
be-
from GP.
Yeah. Listen, there's probably some people that's going to be okay with, but
Right.
I think
Nobody wants to sit next to Russell anyway, so you guys are good.
Oh, come on. That's our guy.
You know what? It was low-hanging fruit. I love Chris.
I know. We all do.
It's just low-hanging fruit.
He needs 6 feet. He needs 6 feet of space just to spread out of the notebooks and the word.
Oh, I thought you were going in a different
Yeah, I
direction
thought you
with
were
that.
gonna make an overweight thing.
No, John is right. The Rooster brings like half of his worldly possessions with him everywhere he goes.
Oh, yes.
So yeah.
Why do I feel like Russell is a hoarder?
I don't know.
There have been some conflicts in some press boxes because of all the stuff he brings in. I love that kid. That guy.
That's
He's not a
funny.
kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be very weird, and like the stadiums obviously are big enough to accommodate that. But then it's like, what do you do with concessions, like you said, and bathrooms and things like
gotta
that?
wait.
So it just
Got to wait, and if they honestly, I know it sucks, but if they limit alcohol consumption, then that'll reduce bathroom trips. Let's be honest,
by a lot.
by a lot. So I think there's a way to do it.
I don't think
And
anybody's
also
going to want to
it's-
go to the games if they got no alcohol.
Well, maybe, but it's maybe for the Redskins. But it's 4 months away, right? And I mean, John, I was telling the guys, take it for what it was. I was at a field yesterday, and there might have been 150 people there on the 3 field. It's just out. It's beautiful, and people are just not going to stay inside. They're just not, especially when this doesn't
agree with
affect
that.
99% of people.
I agree with that. People aren't going to want to. I just wonder if, there are some states that may not be willing to do it, and then if that's the case, like I said, California, Gavin Newsom seems like it may be. I mean, the way he talks, it's going to be a long, long time, and so you don't know if the NFL would allow it in some, but not all, and that's my one wonder on it. But I mean, listen, we all want it back. I mean, I'd love to see a full stadium and this thing, under control. So that would be great.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else jump out at you with some of the other teams and their schedules? I actually haven't even looked outside of the Niners and the
I haven't looked
Skins.
too much at the other. Yeah, I looked at this.
What about within the
this
division?
team. Yeah, the thing is, the thing with the schedules too, like the Redskins actually have by a percentage one of the easier schedules, but when you're 3-13, when you're coming off that, no schedule seems easy, and I'm intrigued a little bit by what they do from the standpoint of because of the changes they've made. And for a team that, there's going to be, as you know, their expectations are going to be low for them, but I'm curious to see the impact of like Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio and those changes and how much that matters. How many wins is that worth? And then getting Chase Young, what does that do to the defense? I mean, there's still a lot of questions on this team, and the people in that organization are well aware of the questions that remain. But then I think there's like, what does this Gibson guy do? And Gandy Golden, can they really make an impact, or are they making, is it too big of a leap for them? I don't know, but I think that it adds to some intrigue about what they could do, and you could paint a scenario where you say, boy, they were better than I thought they'd be. Now, what that means, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, I don't think we're looking at a playoff team here, but I do think that there's for me, a lot of things to learn about them, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. And it'd be nice to get on the field and actually be able to see it.
Joined by John Keim, covers the Redskins for ESPN.com. The out-of-division home slate is pretty sexy. Lamar comes in, McVay and company return, Joe Burrow shows up, the Seahawks come to FedEx Field, and Ron Rivera's former team also comes to FedEx. Yeah, no, I mean, I think, it's funny. It'll be fun to see Lamar and to see, just because, again, to see a guy with that sort of the ability that he has to make plays, and to see how do you defend that. And they're very different players. And Russell Wilson has always been one of my favorite guys to watch because I think he's tremendous. But it always adds to when you see quarterbacks like that, it just makes it more enjoyable. Also makes it tougher on the defense. But the Joe Burrow one will be for a game that could be against two very bad teams. You could have Burrow and Haskins going at it. Burrow, Chase Young going after Burrow. I mean there's some fun games to watch, even if this team isn't very good. I think it'll still be, like I said, hopefully there are games we can watch because I think there's some fun things to see this year. And, the Rams, I think, will be – I'm really curious to see what they do because knowing Sean like I do and like this area does, I can't imagine how much that year has eaten at him last year. And what I'll bet you that guy already has in-depth game plans for this year, for every week.
Oh, yeah.
And he's probably revised them. I'll bet you he's revised them a few times already. And that's, so like that guy is so driven. How does that translate for them? And they got rid of a lot of parts.
Yeah.
So what does that do? So I think, I'm really, and then, the other thing you talk about the quarterbacks too, like Kyler Murray, I'm excited to see that guy because, I didn't get a chance to watch him a lot last year. So to be able to see him and what he can do, and I like guys my size who can do things like he does. So, that'll be fun. So yeah, it's, so.
John, real quick, you can just answer quickly. You're a classy guy, so you're not going to trash anyone. I think Bruce Allen's a terrible human being and a terrible general manager. But let's just say hypothetically, a team got rid of who was a guy who was unanimously considered a horrific general manager. Hypothetically, if that happened, do you think you would see improvement on the field, generally speaking, that following year? Like, will that impact our record this year, hypothetically, if that kind of situation ever occurred?
I definitely think it impacts it. I think
wins and losses.
I think it definitely can. And the reason why is because this is why, like, during free agency, I know some people were freaking out because they weren't signing all these big names and, like, why did they fill this? And to me, the single biggest thing, that improvement over this year was that exactly what you're talking about. And it has led to a much smoother relationship between the coaches and the front office. So what you get are guys that fit what you want and guys that, that you are, like when Bruce Allen was here, too often you'd end up hearing later, well, the coaches didn't want this guy, and he didn't really fit into what they wanted. Or from the front office side, it's like, well, we gave him this guy and they didn't want to do anything with him. There was just always, whether it was friction or not being on the same page or whatever, or just sometimes decisions made without really consulting, or without like taking into account certain other factors, and it leads to what we saw. And I think when you take that away and you have a much stronger relationship, I think it definitely can lead to an improvement on the field because you're going to get, you maybe you just got depth guys, but you need those depth guys, and maybe those guys are the ones who can keep it from falling off the wheels because you have enough depth to go in there and sustain when you have injuries. So I definitely think there's a level of wins, improvement in wins from a move like that. Absolutely. And I said this before at the time in free agency. If in the past, if they had signed another big-time free agent like last year, they still would have been 3-13 because you had all those other factors in play. And I think conversely this year, the fact that they didn't, I think it's the improvement in that relationship that will help lead to probably a better roster for what these guys want.
John, thanks as always for the time. Have a great weekend. This John Keim covers the Redskins for ESPN.com. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks,
See you,
guys.
man. Have a good weekend.